A former refugee with a big heart is providing financial support to Sudanese refugees. Orphaned Nigerian children bear the brunt of Boko Haram's violent insurgency. And the world marks Breast Cancer Awareness Month. What women need to know to protect themselves. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, within hours, two strong earthquakes rocked central Italy Wednesday, causing major damage to several churches and other buildings. But the nation avoided the disaster seen just 2 months ago when an earthquake killed nearly 300 people. So far, there has been no reports of deaths or major injuries, although several dozen people were treated for mild injuries or shock. Marco Rinaldi, the mayor of Osita, one of the hardest hit cities, says the low number of injuries is likely due to the timing of the earthquake. Many people fled their homes after the first 5.5 magnitude quake hit, so when the stronger 6.1 quake struck 2 hours later, they had already evacuated. Osita is located about 75 kilometers north of Amatrice, where an earthquake in August killed 297 people. Well, a former refugee from Sudan has launched a campaign to help Sudanese refugees by selling African coffee. He says the project provides financial support to Sudanese refugees with the objective of making them become more self-reliant while also creating awareness about the needs of refugees. Manyang Riathker is founder and director of the Humanity Helping Sudan Ethiopia project, and he joins me now to discuss this initiative. Manyang, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks for having me.
Now, first, just share with us, when you kind of came up with this idea, and what made you think about it?
Well, what made me think about this is there are 60 million worldwide refugees, and the big topic has been Syria. Yes, there's a problem in Syria, but in 65 million refugees, there's over 3 million in Sudan. No one talk about it. But to bring awareness to this allowing coffee, the 734 coffee, so when people see about refugee, about this 734 and drink it, they will learn about the refugee crisis, because this coffee is about the story of refugee. This is a Sudanese refugee's story, and that's what I'm trying to bring to America, bring it to store, bring it to social people see refugees as people who are looking for help. They don't see that they can be social enterprise. My idea is that, I want to be social enterprise for refugees, not just getting a free stuff, but actually having a thing that I can sell to people.
Yes.
And then when they read about it, they can know about it.
So indeed, many people take coffee, so therefore when they buy this coffee, they see the face of Sudan. It means a lot. People always want to know how exactly is this money that is, generated from selling this coffee getting to those refugees or to the programs that help the refugees?
Well, we are part of Humanity Helping Sudan. We've been operating there for since 2008 as a part of Humanity Helping Sudan. The goal now is more about the goal now is more raising awareness than the money itself. But when we go to Sudan, we want to build a school. We want to build like a trade, not a school where you go from 1 to 3. We want to build a vocational school where you can learn about electrics, and that's where the money going to go there. And we are actually going to go there to build it, not just sending money there or all this kind of thing.
Now we know that so many of those used to be called lost boys. You're one of them, and you're no longer a lost boy. I've started so many different programs. How do you ensure that all these programs are actually well coordinated, so they're beneficial, and that people locally can actually connect with these programs and make sure they work for them?
Sudan been struggling since 1950. Before I even was born, there was war, and there was war when my father was alive. This 27 children lost their family. They run. I'm one of them, but the lucky of them were brought to America, about 4,000 of us. So, and when I call 734, mean the geographical coordination of that region, but also 734 mean that among 27, when we come to Ethiopia, 7,000 children die. So the 7 actually mean two things. Is a 7,000 lost boy who died. We want to represent them in that coffee. In the region where they die there is also the refugee that live in that region. That's what 7 all mean together, the coordination of that region. and that's what that means. Now we need to come together. I understand that, as you know, we grow in refugee camp, but at the very end, we are from Sudan. We are from southern Sudan. At the very end, the best thing we could do is to come together and work as one group.
Very quickly, and I didn't mean to ask you a political question, but how does the situation in South Sudan, for example, complicate what you're doing?
Well, it's really hard. You know, I wish the peace should have been there. I wish the people in Sudan should have just come together. I really wish that, you know, the development, we're struggling so hard. We live outside, you know. I live Sudan since I was 4, and when I went back, I was happy to have a place to call home, to meet friends. But now it goes back. It affected me because I'm taking people back every time, and it's just hard.
Well, let's hope somebody listens, and hopefully your program helps many more people. Thank you very much, Manyang. Well, that Manyang Riyad Khair is the founder and director of the Humanity Helping Sudan Ethiopia project. Well, in West Africa, Boko Haram's insurgents in Nigeria has victimized thousands of people, but none have felt as much pain as the children who have lost both parents to the terror group. A boarding school in the northeast Nigeria state of Borno was established a year ago to help these children and now has 100 students. VOA's Baraje Bashir visited the school and filed this report narrated by Salim Solomon. Good job. All right.
The Borno Orphan Boarding School was built by the Kano and Borno state governments for one purpose: saving children who have lost everything. The 100 students here are between the ages of 5 and 8, except for one student who is 13. All of them lost their parents, killed by the Boko Haram insurgency, and were forced to flee their villages. Each child carries a heartbreaking story, but they are now living a fairly normal life. Saidu Goza had this to say about the orphanage.
I have no problem with the food or the well-being of myself and other students. The officials are trying their best. I enjoy studying and living in the orphanage.
The school has a big compound, a playground, dormitory, and a library that a non-government organization recently donated. Some children are already dreaming of a life beyond the orphanage.
I want to become a doctor so that I can help the less privileged and the needy.
Sometimes teachers have to overcome a language barrier to educate the students.
At first, I usually get a student that understands very little of the Hausa language, but then I tell him what I want to explain and have him explain it to the rest of the children, and steadily I begin communicating with the orphans. It was not easy, but with determination and dedication, I'm able to communicate and teach them.
Usually, after a nap time, the children queue up for their lunch. Some of them eat individually, while others prefer to eat in groups. The school cook says they like the food she cooks for them.
There are 4 of us responsible for the 3 square meals. Since the founding of the school, they have never complained of food scarcity or that the food is not tasty. They behave very well.
They have no complaints as the children are growing up and are adapting to their new environment. The children are gaining education and everything is being provided, and they are willing to learn at all times. That is our goal, and it is being achieved.
Despite the positive outlook, challenges remain, especially about the lack of support staff. There are few staff members looking after the children, and additional employees are needed. School officials hope the government will recruit more staff in the near future. Salim Solomon for Baraje Bashir, VOA News.
Well, fleeing, fighting, abandoning their villages and returning to formerly Islamic State-controlled areas, Iraqis are on the move. While aid workers set up camps for the 1 million people who are expected to be displaced, many recaptured villages and towns remain virtually empty, littered with bombs and blackened by burning oil wells. VOA's Heather Maddock reports from northern Iraq.
Oil wells billow over this town, while fumes from a burning sulfur plant poison the air. They were set alight by Islamic State militants fleeing Kurdish Peshmerga and Iraqi forces. Soldiers say this fight is bigger than the immediate goal of recapturing Mosul, Iraq's second-largest city from Islamic State.
We are not just defending our own people, we are defending the world. Even you. If we do not fight them, they will just get stronger and attack more places.
Further north, at a camp about 30 kilometers from Mosul, dust settles on new tents as aid workers prepare for what they expect could be 1 million new refugees.
It will be a bigger disaster if we do not get more help because winter is coming. We need to find a way to keep the people warm, not just provide food and pillows.
In a nearby village, many houses still stand, but bombs and booby traps make it too dangerous for people to come home. The International Organization for Migration says already more than 10,000 people have been displaced since the operation to retake Mosul began earlier this month.
I hope they will free Mosul and other places as soon as possible so people can go home. There are too many refugees.
But analysts say the fight for Mosul may be long and dangerous. And while many Iraqis in the region are displaced, authorities believe 1.5 million people in Mosul are still trapped in their homes. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Gayara, Iraq.
Well, the U.S. presidential candidates are scrambling to increase and secure voter support, especially in the battleground states. Democrat Hillary Clinton spent her 69th birthday in Florida on Wednesday, where her Republican rival Donald Trump also was campaigning. But Trump took a detour Wednesday to formally open his new hotel in Washington, just blocks away from the White House. VOA's Latitza Hoke reports.
Protesters calling for a boycott of Trump hotels gathered outside Washington's old post office pavilion, where the Republican candidate inaugurated his new luxury hotel. The demonstration was organized by a union representing employees in his hotel in Las Vegas after he refused to negotiate with them. Inside the historic building, Trump touted the project in the nation's capital as an example of what he could achieve as president.
A project like this demonstrates what is possible when a team works together for a totally common purpose. It also shows how to work with our government and to get things done. My theme today is 5 words: under budget and ahead of schedule. That's what we did.
He also fought critics complaining about the time he spent off the campaign trail.
I built one of the great hotels of the world. What am I supposed to do, not show up? I'm taking 1 hour off. I'm going to North Carolina right after this. Then I'm going back down to Florida. I'm going up to New Hampshire. I'm all over the place.
In a last-ditch effort to catch up with Hillary Clinton in the opinion polls, Trump is addressing various groups, including dual American-Israeli citizens.
My administration will stand side by side with the Jewish people and Israel's leaders to continue strengthening the bridges that connect not only Jewish Americans and Israelis, but also all Americans and Israelis.
His Democratic rival is also focusing on so-called swing or battleground states.
Every vote counts. Just ask my friend, former Vice President Al Gore. And Lake Worth can make the difference. Florida can make the difference. And if people get out and vote, we will have a victory on November the 8th.
Clinton's daughter Chelsea campaigned for her in Ohio, where Trump maintains a lead in the polls.
We have to turn Ohio blue up and down the ballot, and I know we'll do that with your support.
Clinton appears to have no shortage of supporters in California, where Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame was vandalized by a sledgehammer in the pre-dawn hours Wednesday. A suspect was arrested later in the day, and the damage was quickly repaired. Latitza Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, the World Health Organization links air pollution to millions of premature deaths worldwide. Stay with us.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Madul with the latest on breast cancer awareness in Africa. Lino.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's being marked in countries around the world. Medical experts and activists say it is a time to help increase attention and support for the awareness, early detection and treatment, as well as palliative care of this disease. Breast cancer is by far the most common cancer in women worldwide, both in the developed and developing countries. The International Agency for Research on Cancer says there are about 1.38 million new cases and 458,000 deaths from breast cancer worldwide each year. At least 80% of people survive breast cancer in North America. However, less than 40% survive the disease in low-income countries. Joining us for more on the subject is Dr. Paul Jane Edu, Head of Clinical Services at Kasoa Polyclinic in Ghana and a board member of Ghana Medical Journalism Association. Dr. Jane Edu, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So less than 40% of women survive breast cancer in low-income countries, which of course include countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Yes. Tell us about some of the reasons.
Okay, so as WHO has rightly said, almost about 500,000 die from breast cancer every year, and out of this, about half are from sub-Saharan Africa and low-income countries. In Africa, one of the big things is late presentation. In fact, breast cancer is curable if it is picked up early enough, and our biggest challenge in Africa has been late presentation. This has been due to, first of all, the trust that people have in traditional healers. These are people who have gained the trust of patients, and when they have any kind of medical condition, they tend to resort to them first. Unfortunately, they end up spending so much time with them, and then by the time they present to the hospitals, it's really very late. Another issue is the religious healers. I mean, pastors, imams, traditional religious leaders have earned so much trust, and they end up also taking so much time of patients who have breast cancer. But the big one in Africa, again, is the customs. Okay. You know, we are in a very patriarchal setup, and also has a very polygamous setting. Most women with issues of affecting their sexuality and even their breasts would want to keep it quiet. And,
because of stigma, perhaps, at some point, right? Stigma has a lot to do with it.
There's a bit of stigma. There's a bit of stigma as well with it. And so if she comes up publicly, people are going to probably think that she's done something evil and she's being punished for it. You know.
Sometimes husbands also kick their wives out from the house.
And so if she's competing with another woman with her husband, then she'll keep hiding it because she wouldn't want to show her deficiency to the husband or to the public, so that she's kicked out of the house. And so this poor woman will just keep to herself, and before she presents to the hospital, things are really late already.
So let's look at solutions here. We've talked about husbands. How can husbands and men in general be part of the solution?
In fact, one of my greatest heroes of breast cancer was this man whose wife had suffered from breast cancer, and he had been with her for over 10 years, until one day when she finally ceases breathing at home, and he brings her himself to the hospital after 10 years of taking care of the wife. And so I think men play an immense role to prolonging the lives of people battling with breast cancer. And this woman has survived almost 10 years with breast cancer because of the support she has.
Very important.
Yes.
And what is the message that we can share with women that do not have the resources, even for prevention or screening, or when they are diagnosed with breast cancer? What is the message there?
Okay, so the fact that you are diagnosed with breast cancer doesn't mean it's a death sentence. That's first of all. But even before you are diagnosed, every woman should learn how to examine her breasts. That is key, at least to pick up breast lumps, to observe if there's any bleeding from the breast, or any nipple or ulcers, discharges, you have to report early. But if you have been diagnosed, it's not the end of the world. You need to talk to your doctor to see what next is for you in terms of the treatment. And I think that's basically what every woman needs to be able to do. But solution, as you mentioned, number one, health literacy, educating our women, educating our communities on what to know about breast cancer. Again, follow-ups have been a big thing in Africa. And I think that some people have pioneered breast clinics, which is very commendable. That makes it a bit comfortable for women to come in and report their issues of breast problems. And so a few women, especially in Ghana, someone like Dr. Wiafi, she's done a fantastic job having a clinic where women can easily come in and talk about issues affecting their breasts and these problems. And this helps with follow-ups, early diagnosis, and treatment.
Thank you, Dr. Jani Edu.
Thank you very much, Lenore.
Thank you. And that was Dr. Paul Jani Edu. He is Head of Clinical Services at Kasoa Polyclinic in Ghana. Now, the World Health Organization recently linked air pollution to millions of premature deaths worldwide. Most of the pollution comes from burning fossil fuels for electricity and transportation that has blanketed some cities with a haze. But not all air pollution is so visible. An infrared camera is being used in London to see the dirty air particles that people can't see. Here's VOA's Deborah Black.
Air pollution is worse than ever in many places and can trigger serious illness, such as asthma, as well as heart and respiratory disease. Toxic fumes from cars and trucks are a major cause of air pollution worldwide. Here in London, this infrared camera detects emissions that people can't see. The camera produces a thermal image from the heat.
The problem is that pollution these days is invisible largely, not like it was in the 50s and 60s. So technologies that help people to visualize these things are really going to help to get the message across.
And that message also includes the dangers of carbon dioxide entering the atmosphere, primarily through the burning of fossil fuels. That CO2 pollution is contributing to climate change.
Everyone is talking about reduction of emissions, reduction of CO2 emissions, but it's not possible to see it with the human eye. So we recognize that our technology is capable to make that visible and to help you create awareness of that so important topic.
The infrared camera from FLIR Systems shows how the pollutants, including carbon dioxide, spread from the source into the air.
You start with a grayscale image and you can flip through different scales, each scale enhancing different scenes and also highlighting some contrast.
Since its infrared camera is very expensive, the company envisions the day when smartphones will have similar technology to help everyone avoid pollution hotspots.
We know that already from our infrared sensors that are implemented in smartphones or in little attachments you can attach to the smartphones. So we talked about that advanced sensor technology, which today is a little bulky to put it in a smartphone, honestly. But if technology really moves forward and we assume that it might fit in smaller devices, that would definitely be interesting to look into for us.
Meanwhile, the experts say moving just a few feet from any fumes you see will significantly reduce your exposure levels. Deborah Block, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Lenore Moudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, Lenore, thank you very much. Now be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, how Uganda's bold and creative innovators are transforming their communities. We'll be right back.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Well, in East Africa, Uganda is brimming with a rising new generation of bold, creative thinking innovators and entrepreneurs who are inventing and developing new technologies that are simplifying their lives and transforming their communities. VOA's Paul Diho tells us more.
According to Uganda's Population and Census Bureau, youth unemployment in the country is at all-time high. More than 40,000 young people graduate from Ugandan universities each year, but the market can only provide about 8,000 jobs annually. Initiatives like Innovation Village, a top innovative space, gives smart young developers a platform to work, incubate new ideas, and learn how to make startups work with investment. Japhis Kawanguzi co-founded the startup nearly 4 years ago.
What I do is, with the Innovation Village, to put in place a framework that can leverage the dividend out of this young population and bring out that creativity to commercialize it.
It's early afternoon at Innovation Village, and the techies are typing away on laptops and smartphones, creating new technologies and applications that are driving the country's economic growth and turning Uganda into a tech hub.
People come up with great ideas, and they just they die off because the support framework is not actually existing of how we can take this great idea and bring it to fruition.
Innovation centers in Uganda, like Innovation Village, are helping to nurture technopreneurs to launch their startups and access markets. Japhis Kawanguzi says helping emerging entrepreneurs is something he does because he believes it will spur development. So what drives these young people?
It's probably you realize that after school I don't have a job and I have to start living a life. And the question is, what options do I have? So unemployment, the difficult circumstances, put you in a situation where it becomes survival for the fittest. And since you can't find a job, you must come up with an alternative of how you survive. So the direct alternative in this case has been entrepreneurship, has been innovation, and seeing many of them who have been rewarded, I think motivates others to also come up with their own ideas.
Tech analysts say some possible IPO startups are growing in Africa. They are hoping you will see African-based tech companies with revenues large enough to support a public launch on a local stock exchange or even trade on NASDAQ. Meanwhile, the IT industry has been on a significant upswing in the past few years, driven primarily by advances in mobile phone technology, and Ugandan officials are keen to capitalize on that too. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
And that's it. Good night. So.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
Here is U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry talking about U.S. and Chinese relations.
Listen for this word.
Emergence.
We welcome the emergence of a peaceful, stable, prosperous China that contributes to the stability and the development of the region and that chooses to play a responsible role in world affairs.
Emergence means the act of something appearing. It is coming out of hiding or just beginning.
Emergence also can describe nature, like the emergence of flowers, which come every spring.
Now, when you hear the word emergence, you will know what this newsword means.